The Event, a science fiction thriller series by Melanie Anne Phillips. Brazil was to be the world's unwilling test case of the event's aftermath on modern cities that had enough time to make initial preparations. City size is determined by three standards. City proper, which includes only the population falling within the legal city limits. Urban areas, which include all of the contiguous developed areas even beyond the city limits, and metropolitan area, which also includes other developed areas connected to the city proper through transportation corridors over undeveloped land. So, whereas Los Angeles was the 51st largest city in the world by city proper figures, it was 21st in terms of urban population, and the 17th largest metropolitan area. Brazil itself was home to 17 cities of 1 million or more within the city limits, the largest of which was São Paulo, with a population of 12 million, 21 million, and 22 million by all three standards, respectively. São Paulo, however, would not be approached by the event until the fourth hour, as well as its capital, Brasília, its third largest city. But over the course of the third hour, the second and fourth most populous regions, Salvador and Rio de Janeiro, would be overcome, providing a blueprint for what, and what not, to do in preparation. In this regard, frantic efforts were pressed forward both in the governmental and civilian sectors. Those with ready money were leaving by plane to the west, in the hope that whatever was causing the event might peter out before it reached them. Or perhaps a way would be found to counter or mitigate its effect. Of Brazil's nearly 2,500 airports, more than 500 were public, the remainder being smaller private airstrips and Air Force bases. Each of the country's four largest cities boasted at least one international airport capable of servicing jumbo jets, though these had been on the decline in recent years due to fuel and operating costs, and some that could handle the newer super jumbo varieties, such as the Airbus 380, which in one configuration could carry more than 800 passengers with a range of 15,000 kilometers and a speed just 50 kilometers short of the sound barrier. There was just enough time to transit to the United States before the interface caught up with them. Space on these was selling at exorbitant prices. Lesser flights on standard jets were completely overbooked, trading cargo weight for passenger load, with some even offering standing room only at a discount. The Brazilian Air Force was kept busy largely by escorting the crowded fleet of craft, both large and small, taking to the air many without flight plans and a growing number without tower clearance. Smaller planes, whose pilots and passengers were well aware they could not outrun the coming event, were, in a frenzied effort to shuttle people home, ferry supplies, or carry increasing numbers to government-designated survival camps where non-corruptible food was gathered near sources of drinking water, along with raw lumber and natural building materials for shelter. Survival camps were being established in every nation following guidelines based on what had already occurred in the aftermath zone, as well as the latest recommendations from the Event Network's research and planning teams. Common sense also played a significant role insofar as it might be easily anticipated that when 10 million people, even if they had been successfully removed from skyscrapers and buildings in general, suddenly found themselves naked in an undeveloped world and surrounded by countless multitudes in the same condition, panic would ensue. Bluntly, they would stampede. No amount of preparation or pre-messaging, regardless of how well it was carried out, could prevent this natural animal response to inexplicable change and unknown danger. Any relief facility would be quickly overrun, especially since few barriers could be assembled in time to divert the flow. The sad truth was that the more who were saved from immediate demise, the larger the mindless throng and the greater the carnage in the aftermath. Therefore, the decision was made that all survival camps should be located well outside metropolitan areas. Populations would be told what to expect when the event passed, directions would be provided to reach the camps, and local, untended relief stations would be set up with food, water, non-corruptible supplies, and instructions for fashioning shoes, crude clothing, and treating wounds and shock. Law enforcement and official personnel were to be quietly evacuated to the camps along with their families to prepare for the hordes that would ultimately arrive to join them. To their credit, many first responders and members of the clergy opted to remain at the relief stations to ease suffering and calm spirits in whatever ways they could. The government's decisions, as dispassionate as they were supported by reports emerging from the event zone in London. Volunteers returning to the line described the unimaginable suffering of the injured, children wandering aimlessly without their parents, groups of naked people huddling together and some hiding in the trees. More than one rescuer recounted being overpowered and having their shoes and crude equipment stolen. There were attacks on carts, supplies were plundered, and one event victim actually made off with one of the horses from the mounted police. From this it was determined that some means needed to be developed to identify officials in the immediate aftermath, as well as to arm enforcement personnel to protect those officials. Suggestions for identification included the use of blueberry or other organic stains to be applied to the skin, or necklaces holding some specific design made of incorruptible material that could be conveyed to the populace in advance, common enough to outfit all officials but rare enough to inhibit counterfeiting. As for arms, baseball bats were made with a subtractive process, and, if left unfinished, would survive unscathed. Factories were immediately nationalized, and all stock, as well as any new units that could be completed in time, were distributed to the camps along with pointed wooden sticks that could be used instantly after the event had passed. It was figured that while troops used these initial weapons to create checkpoints, other workers could assemble spears and knives from pre-chipped stone lashed to wooden handles. It was important that in the arms race with the chaotic crowd, the forces of order maintained the upper hand. Read the entire event series in paperback, audiobook, or for your Kindle on Amazon at the link in the video description below. Your narrator is Don Warrick. The event series is written and copyrighted by Melanie Anne Phillips.